Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm excited to have a longtime acquaintance of mine. I guess I wouldn't exactly call us friends. We don't do things socially, but I sure like him. And I was delighted when he said yes. So I'm going to bring him on so we can get right to it. Please welcome my friend. I'm going with friend, Bill Thomas.
Okay.
Hi,
All
Bill.
right. Hi. Glad to be here.
Thanks so much. I'm really was delighted when you said yes. I was thinking you and I have known each other almost as long as Maz and I have known each other, because we met at Alan White's house, and Alan was the reason that Maz ended up in America in the first place. Maz came to postdoc for him, and Alan used to roast a whole pig in his backyard, and your family and mine met there. Our kids kind of grew up together, and so we have a long history.
Yeah, that's true. We've been running into each other at various things and enjoying our conversations when we do. And you're right, we haven't like melded into that kind of like, oh, we do stuff together all the time sort of friendship. But yeah, great. It's been great knowing you.
So. Well, it has been great knowing you, and you have given me some really remarkable opportunities over the years, because you work for Prairie Public, which is the North Dakota public broadcasting station. And so I was able years and years ago now, probably 11 years ago, excuse me, to guest host your flagship show a number of times one summer, which was truly a thrill for me. I met some unbelievable people, including Naomi Shihab Nye, the Muslim American poet, who is just, I think, maybe my biggest moment of feeling like, wow, I am in the presence of someone really remarkable. It was incredible.
Oh yeah, she's a great poet, and yeah, you did a really good job hosting.
Well, I loved that job. I always say radio's the best gig in the world. There's a lot to it, but what a great thing to just get to bring your voice into people's homes and cars and through their earphones. So it's great to have you on and hear your take on some of these questions, Bill. So let's get right to it. I'm curious to know, give me one or two of the important lessons that you learned before 50 that have been really valuable to you post 50.
Don't be ashamed to wear big headphones.
I always wear big ones too.
They work really well, and you look funny, but you just need to do it. I think there's things I've learned that I don't think are at all unique to me. When you brought this up, I thought this is going to sound like platitudes, but I learned like it really pays to be nice to people. It's interesting because as I thought about it, there are contradictory platitudes, and everybody picks the ones to live by that work for them, and that one has really worked for me. Another one is just about working hard. If you want something, it's worth working hard on it, and it will usually pay off in something, not always what you expect.
Yep.
That's really true. And one thing, and I really tie this with being in radio, it really pays to listen to people when you're talking with them. Mm-hmm. And if you're a radio interviewer, and Dana, you know this because you've developed interviewing since, I know you were good at it when you were working with us, and you've done other things with that. You really got to pay attention to the people. It doesn't work if you just sit there and all you're thinking about is your next question.
Yeah.
You do have to have some questions in mind, but you've got to pay attention to what they're saying. And so I've learned that the skills of doing a good radio interview, or a good journalistic interview, really extend outside of the professional sphere.
Yeah, it's a rare person who says, wow, you were really listening while I was talking to you, and I hated that. Mostly people love to feel heard and valued. So you're absolutely right. I always say that I think at its core, that is the most important element to acting. If you can really listen on stage, even though you know what they're saying and you know what you're going to say next, if you really listen, then you almost can't help but respond in an honest way. And it has served me really well in my life as well, because you don't just take the headphones off in your case and then suddenly become this oblivious person who pays no attention. It's part and parcel to who you are, which is probably what helped drive you to doing radio.
I've really, one thing I've realized is that it's affected my conversation so much that I will often do conversations like I'm doing an interview. And
Yes.
and people don't mind, that you listen, and then you say, "Oh, tell me more about that," or "Why did you say this?" And then you shut up and listen some more, rather than going up to, "Oh, hey, I know something that I'll tell you this thing that I know that's relevant to it." You keep asking questions, and it's a good skill to have.
It's a great skill to have,
A
and one,
habit to have.
yes, one that I both possess and need to work on employing even more. Just because I have it doesn't mean I always use it. Um, so what do you know now, Bill, post 50, that you wish you could go back and tell yourself about? And I don't care at what age, you can be very young or, somewhere in the middle. But what do you know now that you wish you had known then?
Well, yes, I'll skip over like specific personal
Okay.
events that would be like, oh, I wish I'd known I was going to marry her earlier. It could have saved a lot of time, that kind of stuff. But the well, there's one thing, and I've thought a lot about this in recent years. It's something that I've looked back on, and that's about how we make decisions.
Mhm.
And I have realized that many very important decisions in my life have been made without a, a conscious, logical construction of, pluses and minuses and consideration. They have been made on what people used to call instinct,
Mhm.
um, or what's sometimes called, you know, uh, people talk about a kind of non-intellectual comprehension
Mhm.
that has actually guided, some important decisions. When I look back on it, I was like, I didn't think about that.
Mhm.
I didn't sit down and do pros and cons and like, oh, how do they all add up? And so that's been interesting to me to realize that, because I think when I was younger, I I wasn't conscious of how that worked and of how it could
Mhm.
work. And I thought, the best thing is if you could just slow down and think about it and rationally work it all out. That works for some things, I think, but not many things.
Whew. I agree with that. I do think there is a instinct, a gut reaction, a inner sense of some sort that some people I think view as being a very spiritual connection, and some people view as being something else. That does want us to pay attention to it. I mean, I think you're right. Those big moments in life, you can often look back on and think, how in the world did I do that? And you realize it almost was sort of an out of body kind of thing. Something was driving you, whether it was necessarily rational on paper or not. I am also not a pros and cons person. kind of know what I want to do. And often for me, it's about kind of backing into it. If I know what I want the conclusion to be, well, then how do I back into it to move towards it? And maybe that's just how do I justify it? But I like that lesson a lot, because I think we're sort of taught to not trust our instinct. And I think our instincts often actually serve us really, really well if we give them the space to kind of present themselves.
Yeah, I think people used to talk about it sometimes as inspiration in a, well, that word has become, I think, sort of diluted, but used to literally mean the idea that there was some kind of spirit that like touched you and suddenly gave you an answer, and that's kind of how it feels sometimes.
I agree with you. Yeah, great. Okay, last question. What has been the most joyful thing in your life since turning 50?
There, yeah, this is, boy, it's hard to pick one, and uh, the so I'm at the moment waiting for inspiration to strike me, because I've had
Trust your instinct, Bill.
yeah I've had a lot of a lot of things to consider that could go on that list, and
Let
there.
me take some pressure off you. Doesn't have to be the most. What have been some joyful aspects of being 50? Let's go that way. It takes a little pressure off.
Yeah. But I mean, the thing going with kind of the gut, the thing that keeps popping up, bubbling back to the top, is the is seeing my children develop, and there's not one like, oh, when they graduated college or when they got this job achievement or some kind of thing like that. There's not like one moment like that. But overall, I think the different points where I've seen them develop and grow, and how they express themselves, and they're partly continuity of me and my wife, and very much their own person. Uh, you know, I would say something about my relationship with my wife, but that's been steady. That's been very steady. It's not like there was like, oh, she got sick and didn't die, and that was so joyful or something like that. It's
Yeah.
just that's been a strong, steady source of happiness in my life. But when I think of trying to pull some moments together, it's that development of children thing that is strong for me.
Well, I don't know your children as adults. I knew them as young kids. And what's fascinating to me, because I know a little bit about what they've gone on to do in their adulthood through you and Loretta, is that those platitudes you started with clearly played an important role in their lives. I mean, they were fantastic young kids, both of them, in my exchanges with them. They've gone on to work really hard in social justice, in causes that matter to them, in sort of having a global outlook as opposed to a very insulated outlook. I know that they have, had bumps and bruises like everybody has, but that they've got a resiliency to them. And so I think that's such a testament to both who you are as a person, but also how you have lived your life and modeled it for other people. And, I mean, gosh, you've worked for one of the most impactful nonprofit organizations, at least the entire career that I've known you to be in. And so much of what makes Prairie Public and PBS powerful is sort of that same thing. It operates from a place of kindness, from a place of hard work and curiosity, and asking questions and telling stories of people who are often overlooked or underrepresented or marginalized in some way, and brings that to the fore. So I just feel like you are such an embodiment of your work, Bill. And your work is so much better because you have brought yourself to it.
Well, it was interesting. Not too long ago, my college that I went to asked, the archive was developing stuff. They asked you to kind of dig into your old materials and stuff. And I had a box that I hadn't looked in for years. And I pulled out the college magazine that they send out to alumni. And they did an article on me when I was a sophomore.
Okay.
You know, kind of like get to know a student at the college. They always like did some kind of student profile every time. And the headline on my article, and I just thought like, my gosh, I have been so boring and consistent, much more than I expected. The headline on the article was activists ... for understanding. And the I've always loved to bring people ways to understand other people and the world better. It's just been something that I thought like this can really help, you know, if people understand each other better and they understand what's going on. And that's, and I realized what a through line that's been all the way.
Not boring, Bill. I think there's a lot to be said for consistency, and there's a lot to be said for being a 19 or 20-year-old kid who had a dream that you have achieved. That's extraordinary. So congratulations on that.
Okay.
And thanks so much for joining me. I loved this conversation. I love those platitudes because you really do embody them. You don't just say them. I've seen you walk them for all the years that I've known you. So thank you for joining me and sharing that with our audience.
Oh, well, thank you for those kind words. And yeah, well, I'll be curious what people make of it.
All right, everybody else, I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks again, Bill.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.